Hi, this is your Stevia Chef with you one more time. Well, a lot more than one more time, but this is the next episode. And this one, you're wondering what this is. This is dill. And what can we make with dill? Why, we can make a delicious lox, also known as Gravalox. So, let's take this. It's probably done by a Pisces who's working for scale. But let me give you the instructions here. The first thing is, you're going to have a lot of dill. You have kosher salt. And you're going to use anywhere between 3/4 to 1/2 a cup of kosher salt. Cinnamon. I like to add cinnamon. I also like to add a little bit of white pepper. You could add brandy if you want. And the other thing that I use is Honey Stevia Tea. And it comes from Herbologist.com. That's the tea that I like to use best. And again, it's called Honey Stevia Tea. So what you do is we'll brew a cup, actually 3/4 of a cup. Can you see that? Can you get in on that? Okay, good. So 3/4 of a cup of tea, let it get down to room temperature or colder. Then what we do is we'll just squeeze this out so we've got this water. You don't want to have too much water, because if you do, then you're going to run into problems. It doesn't work so well. Ideally, what's going to happen is, and the way the process works, this is again called Gravalox. The other lox that you find, a lot of times it gets smoked. So when they do the smoking, they'll take it and they process it first using this method with the salt and with the dill, but then they'll smoke it. What we do for Gravalox, and this is the old traditional way of doing it, is the salt, the kosher salt, and it's very important that you use kosher salt because that will suck all the liquid, or most of the liquid, out of the lox, out of the salmon. Now, we've got a salmon. Normally you want to use 1 pound of salmon. This is roughly 1 pound. You want to scrape off the scales so that it's a scaleless fish. And you can use any type of a fatty fish. I've tried it before with steelhead, and that came out tasting really, really good. I've tried it with some other types of fatty fish, and that also worked out very good. So if you do it with a fish that's not a fatty fish, it typically does not taste so good. All right. These, by the way, we bought this fish over at Walmart. They got a really good deal on wild-caught Alaskan salmon, and that's another thing. Make sure when you're having salmon, when you're using salmon, make sure that it is Alaskan, and make sure that it's wild-caught, or even Pacific, but wild-caught salmon. Wild-caught is much, much healthier for you than getting salmon that's farm-raised. When it's farm-raised, they don't have to hunt for their food. They get all kinds of, it's just being fed fish food. There's a lot of bacteria in there, and typically it's costing your body more than what it takes in order for it to, for the health benefits that you would get. Okay, when we get to this, now the first thing we do is we sprinkle the salt on the bottom so that it's all solid, you can't see through it. Okay, and you can use any type of a container. You could use plastic, you could use glass, that doesn't really matter. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take the dill, and the dill was washed, and I'm going to peel off the dill, and then I'm going to place each piece of dill onto the salt like this, and I'll be back with you as soon as I've got this all covered. You don't need to watch me do all that. As you can see, this is all nice and covered. Yeah, there will be a little bit of white showing through, but that's okay. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle some cinnamon across the top. This is optional. You can do it to taste, or if you don't want to use it, don't use it. Same thing, I'm going to put some white pepper on top. This helps to give it a little bit of a bite. White pepper as opposed to black pepper or red pepper. And by the way, white pepper is really good in soups too. It tastes really good. Okay, that should be good. Now, When you're using dill, use fresh dill and make sure you wash it and then make sure that it's dried. Okay, the next thing is going to be the salmon. Now this salmon was part of a salmon that had been already pre-cut, which I really don't like, but beggars can't be choosers in this case. So what you want to do is you want to scrape off as much of the skin as you possibly can, debone it, and you want to trim away the fat that's on there. The fat, believe it or not, while it's healthy for you and it tastes really good when you're eating it, when it's fresh, when you make it as a Gravalox, the fat ends up turning rancid and it just smells and it tastes horrible. So you don't want to use that. This salmon looks pretty good as it is. You rinse it off and again try to get as much of the scales off as you can. What we're going to do is we're going to wrap it in cheesecloth, and you can pick up cheesecloth anywhere. So we'll put the salmon, the meat side down, skin side up. And we have this wrapped nice. You can see it can get all the good ingredients that are on the bottom there. And then what we do is we just place the salmon in the bowl or container. You could use glass, you could use anything so long as it's going to be able to hold the salmon. Then you want something that will be able to hold the salmon down. In this instance, this came with a piece of granite. You could take a bowl that's the same size, or roughly the same size, put it on top, and that will hold it down. The reason why is because then it helps to get all the moisture out. Now the other thing I like to do is I like to put a little bit of lemon juice on here. It just seems to me to add a little bit of taste, so I'll do that to taste. And you can also add some alcohol. Now the alcohol that I've tried that worked really good is brandy. I've tried it with vodka, that tasted pretty good also. A little bit of gin, that was okay. If you get into sweet wines or you get into you know, something, even rum, it just doesn't really taste so good. So I would avoid that, but choice is yours. Okay, the next thing is we just pour the tea over it. Then we're going to put the weight on top of the fish. Okay, so we put the weight on top, and then what we're going to do is we're going to cover this up, and then it's going to go into the refrigerator for 24 hours. After 24 hours, we'll take this out, we flip the locks over, and it goes for another 24 hours. Now you'll notice that the Honey Stevia tea here, it's gotten about the size of the salmon that's in there. If you do it with just honey stevia tea, honey stevia leaf instead of the tea, and you sprinkle that on top, that will work too. The recipe originally calls for sugar, but I didn't want to do it with sugar, and I found that this way works pretty good. So I will see you tomorrow when I flip the salmon, and you'll get a little better of an idea.